What if I told you that the secret to self-discipline was not found in a gym, not in a motivational book, but in the worn pages of a 2,000-year-old journal, written by an emperor? In an age where people chase shortcuts, distractions, and dopamine hits, one man stood still. He ruled the greatest empire of his time, but more importantly, he ruled himself. His name was Marcus Aurelius. And his wisdom has guided warriors, philosophers, CEOs, and everyday seekers of strength for centuries. Today, we're going to explore 10 Stoic principles that will help you build iron self-discipline, sharpen your mind, and anchor your life with timeless clarity. These are not feel-good quotes, they are philosophical fire. They challenge your comfort, break your excuses, and forge your inner power. If you've ever felt lost in chaos, if you've ever struggled with self-control, then maybe what you need isn't more motivation, but ancient wisdom. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. These aren't just poetic words from Marcus Aurelius. They are a manual, written in fire, for anyone struggling to find peace in a chaotic world. We live in an age where control feels like a necessity. We try to control how others see us. We try to control outcomes, markets, relationships, even time itself. But the brutal truth is this: the more we grasp for control over the uncontrollable, the more exhausted and powerless we become. The Stoics saw this centuries ago. They understood that serenity comes not from mastering the world, but from mastering ourselves. From drawing a clear line, every single day, between what is within our influence, and what is not. You can't control what people think of you. But you can control how you carry yourself. You can't control whether today's meeting goes your way. But you can control your preparation. You can't control whether someone breaks your heart. But you can choose to keep it open, or let it turn to stone. Control. What? You can. When Marcus Aurelius led Rome during a deadly plague, he didn't waste time blaming the gods, the Senate, or fate. Instead, he asked himself, what does reason demand of me today? That's not weakness. That's strength beyond emotion. That's leadership rooted in clarity. And you don't have to be an emperor to live this way. Imagine this: you lose your job. You didn't see it coming. Maybe it wasn't even your fault. But you stand at a crossroads: do you choose resentment or responsibility? One path says, why me? The other says, now what? One path is emotional slavery. The other, Stoic freedom. This principle, when practiced daily, becomes a mental discipline. A way to declutter the soul. Instead of reacting to every bump in the road, you become the kind of person who drives steadily through the storm. Every moment becomes a test. Will you spiral into things you cannot change? Or will you stand up and take ownership of what's still yours, your thoughts, your voice, your effort? That's Stoicism. That's self-discipline. That's choosing inner power over outer chaos. So tonight, I invite you to do this. Write down what's weighing on your mind. And then, draw a line through every piece that's outside your control. Circle what's left. That's your path. That's your duty. That's your peace. Because peace doesn't come from avoiding storms. It comes from knowing what you were never meant to control in the first place. And putting all your energy into what you can. This is how you build unshakable discipline. Not by trying to change the world, but by changing how you face it. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. That line, from Marcus Aurelius, isn't just metaphor, it's a warning. Because whether you like it or not, your mind is constantly being shaped. By what you read. By what you scroll. By who you surround yourself with. By what you allow to enter, and stay, in your mental space. In today's world, if you don't train your mind, it will be trained for you. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The world doesn't want you disciplined. It wants you distracted. Because a distracted mind is easy to manipulate. A reactive mind is easy to sell to. An untrained mind is easy to control. That's why the second Stoic principle is not just a practice, it's a battle cry. Discipline your mind before the world does. The Stoics believe that your mind, and only your mind, is your true kingdom. Not your home. Not your wealth. Not even your body. Everything else can be taken from you. But your mind? That's sacred territory. So how do you protect it? You build a fortress of awareness. You decide what comes in. You decide what takes root. Every thought you allow to linger becomes a brick in the structure of your reality. So if your mind is filled with gossip, outrage, envy, fear, don't be surprised when your life begins to mirror that. This is why Marcus Aurelius journaled daily, to reflect, observe, and recalibrate his thinking. This is why Epictetus said, don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. Because philosophy isn't what you say. It's what you practice, especially when no one's watching. Now let's bring this home to today. Most people check their phone before they've even said good morning to themselves. Most people consume more content in an hour than our ancestors did in a week. And most people wonder why they feel anxious, reactive, distracted, numb. But you're not most people, are you? Because you're here. Listening. Seeking clarity. Seeking control. And it starts by taking your mental training seriously. Think of your mind like a muscle. If you don't train it, it weakens. If you feed it junk, it bloats. If you leave it unguarded, it becomes a playground for fear, doubt, and illusion. So here's the Stoic path forward. Morning discipline: before the world touches you, touch your mind first. Meditate. Journal. Reflect. Don't reach for chaos the moment you wake up. Decide who you want to be, not just what you want to do. Mental rehearsals: before important meetings, imagine them going wrong. Practice how you'd respond with composure. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. It's not pessimism. It's preparation. Guard your inputs, clean up your feed. Choose your news. Choose your noise. Would you eat garbage every morning and expect to feel good? Then don't feed your mind what poisons your peace. Emotional awareness: Stoics weren't emotionless. They felt deeply. But they refused to be ruled by feelings. Train yourself to pause before reacting. To notice the feeling, but respond with reason. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present. Aware. Awake. Anchored. Because a disciplined mind doesn't panic in chaos. It doesn't chase noise. It doesn't crumble under pressure. It remains. Clear. Strong. Rooted in principles, not pulled by impulse. So here's your Stoic exercise for today. Set a timer for 10 minutes. Sit with your thoughts, without scrolling, without reacting, without escaping. Watch them rise. Watch them fall. And remind yourself. These are just thoughts. They don't control me. I decide what stays. You don't need to become Marcus Aurelius overnight. But you do need to start showing up for your own mind. Because the world is waiting, to hijack your attention, to program your thinking, to sell you on who you should be. Unless you get there first. So discipline your mind. And you won't just change your thoughts. You'll change your life. It is not that we are given a short life, but that we waste much of it. Seneca. Most people spend their lives avoiding pain. Avoiding struggle. Avoiding sweat, rejection, silence, challenge, cold, hunger, heartbreak, boredom. Because we've been taught, subtly, repeatedly, that comfort is the goal. But here's what the Stoics knew. Comfort is not the reward. Comfort is the test. It lulls you. It makes you soft. It slowly, silently steals your edge. And that's why the third Stoic principle is one of the most counterintuitive, and most powerful. Practice voluntary discomfort. Not because you like pain. Not because you hate pleasure. But because discipline doesn't grow in luxury, it grows in resistance. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you chose to do something hard? Not because you had to. But because you needed to sharpen the blade. The Stoics did this constantly. Seneca would go days eating only bread and water, even though he was wealthy, to remind himself that he could. Epictetus, born a slave, taught that freedom comes from needing less, not having more. And Marcus Aurelius, while emperor, would sleep on the floor and wear simple cloaks, training his mind to resist temptation, not bow to it. Why? Because they knew that voluntary discomfort builds immunity to fear. When you practice what scares you, rejection, cold, fatigue, uncertainty, you teach your nervous system. I've been here before. I can handle this. And that's true power, not confidence from comfort, but from capability. In today's world, people want resilience, but don't want resistance. They want mental toughness, but avoid tough moments. They want self-discipline, but refuse to be uncomfortable. But you're here, and that means you're different. So how do we practice this in real life? Start your day with something difficult: cold shower. Morning run. Meditation before sunrise. Not because it's fun, but because it sends a message to your brain. I choose the hard thing. I move first. I act before I'm ready. Fast from convenience, try a digital detox every week. Skip takeout. Walk instead of drive. Not because it's necessary, but because it sharpens awareness. Face rejection deliberately, ask for something where the answer might be no. Apply for that role. Pitch that idea. Speak up. The Stoic doesn't fear no. The Stoic sees no as a mirror. Am I strong enough to stand through it? Go without, skip a meal. Sleep on the floor. Cancel an indulgence. To remind yourself. I can go without. I am not owned by comfort. I am not owned by craving. The point isn't suffering for the sake of suffering. It's suffering with a purpose. To build resilience on your terms, so life doesn't force it on you later. Because if you train yourself to choose discomfort, You won't break when discomfort chooses you. This is the ancient warrior's mindset. Today's world rewards the reactive, but the Stoic thrives in the proactive. Where others seek relief, you seek rigor. Where others flinch, you lean in. And that edge, that daily choice to do one thing hard, is what separates the discipline from the drifting. So here's your challenge, your modern Stoic practice. Pick one discomfort. One resistance. Do it daily. And do it not for results, but for who it's turning you into. Because a life spent only seeking ease is not a life lived, it's a life delayed. You don't become unbreakable by hiding from the cold. You become unbreakable by walking out into it. With your head high. And your soul steady. Just that you do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter. Marcus Aurelius. What does it mean to live according to nature? To modern ears, it might sound vague, poetic, or even irrelevant. But to the Stoics, it was everything. It was the compass. The code. The cornerstone of character. Let's break it down. To live according to nature is not about hugging trees or rejecting modern life. It's about aligning yourself with your highest self. With the order of the universe, and the reason that governs it. It means living in a way that honors your true nature as a human being. And what is that nature? We are not beasts. We are not algorithms. We are not chaos. We are creatures of reason. We are designed to choose, to think, to reflect, to rise above impulse. When Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself in his meditations, he constantly reminded his mind. You were made for this. To act justly, to think clearly, to endure nobly. In other words, to live with intention. But here's the problem. Most people don't live according to reason. They live according to mood. According to emotion. According to what everyone else is doing. That's not nature. That's confusion dressed up as freedom. The Stoic says, you are not here to feel good. You are here to be good. And goodness isn't random, it's deliberate. It's forged in the fire of thoughtful action. So what does that look like, practically? It means making decisions not just based on what feels right, but what is right. Not reacting in anger, but responding with principle. Not seeking comfort, but seeking truth. Not asking, what do I want right now? But, what would the best version of me do right now? It means embracing your role, not resenting it. You are a citizen of the world. A part of the human community. It's not just about your goals, it's about how you serve, how you show up. Seneca once wrote, no one can live happily who has regard to himself alone. It means keeping your mind in harmony, like an instrument finely tuned. When you live out of alignment with reason, you feel it. That tension. That guilt. That unease. You know the feeling when you compromise your integrity. When you lie, cheat, overindulge, lash out. It might feel good for a moment, but something deep inside goes quiet. Like a flame being smothered. Why? Because your soul knows better. Because your nature knows better. The Stoics didn't pretend they were perfect. They struggled. They failed. But they returned to reason. Over and over again. That's the practice. Not perfection. But persistence. So how can you begin this alignment? Ask yourself daily, is this in line with my nature? Is this choice dignified? Does it respect others and myself? Am I ruled by impulse or guided by principle? Journal your moments of misalignment. Don't judge, just notice. The more you track the gap between who you are and who you could be, the more power you gain to close it. Be willing to disappoint others, to be true to yourself. Living according to nature often means not fitting in. But you weren't made to blend in. You were made to stand aligned, with clarity, with conscience, with calm strength. Because when your actions match your values, you may not always be comfortable. But you will always be at peace. So here's your Stoic challenge for this principle. Tomorrow, choose one moment, one decision. And pause before reacting. Ask, what does nature, my better self, require of me here? Then do that. Even if it's hard. Especially if it's hard. Because living according to nature doesn't just shape your decisions. It shapes your destiny. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Marcus Aurelius. 3 words that changed the course of ancient Stoic thought. 3 words that, when understood deeply, can change your life. Memento Mori, remember you will die. At first, it might sound morbid, dark, even depressing. Why would a philosophy that teaches calm, clarity, and control ask us to think about death? Because the Stoics understood something most people today forget. That we only start living fully, when we stop pretending we'll live forever. Let that sink in for a moment. We walk through life like we have unlimited time. Postponing dreams, avoiding truth, numbing out pain. Putting off the hard conversations, the deep commitments, the bold moves. Because we think we have time. But you don't. And neither did Marcus Aurelius. Neither did Seneca. Neither do any of us. And that is exactly why the Stoics meditated on death, daily. Not to fear it. But to remember what matters. To sharpen their actions. To wake up fully while still breathing. Seneca wrote. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Think about that. Death is not the thief. Distraction is. You see, remembering death is not about dying. It's about living with urgency. It's about treating each moment like the rare gift it is. If today were your last day, would you waste it scrolling? Arguing over nothing? Worrying about what people think? Or would you speak your truth? Hug your people tighter. Create something that outlives you. The Stoics saw death as the great clarifier. When you remember death, you stop chasing things that don't matter. You stop comparing. You stop performing. You start living on your terms, with purpose. Seneca recommended that you begin each morning with the thought. This might be the last time I see this sunrise. How will I live this day? Not as a threat. But as an invitation. An invitation to speak more honestly. To work more deeply. To forgive more quickly. To live less anxiously. Because what Memento Mori gives you is not fear, it's focus. It brings you face to face with the fragility of life. So you can finally start treating it with reverence. So how do you practice this? Keep a visible reminder, a ring, a tattoo, a skull, a note on your desk. Not as decoration. But as declaration, I am mortal. I will not waste this. Journal about death once a week. What would you regret if this were your last month? What haven't you said? What haven't you done? Then, go say it. Go do it. Use death as a decision filter. When facing a tough choice, ask. If I were gone next year, what would I wish I had chosen? You don't need to live in fear of death. But you do need to live like you understand it. Because the truth is, every moment you waste is a moment someone else would die to have. Someone in a hospital bed. Someone whose time has already run out. And here you are. Alive. Breathing. With a mind capable of reason. A body capable of movement. A heart capable of connection. Don't insult that gift by drifting through life like you're owed another sunrise. So here is your Stoic challenge for today. Write your own Memento Mori letter. A one-page message you would leave behind if today were your last. Not a will. Not a goodbye. But a message to yourself, from the edge of life. What would it say? And what's stopping you from living by those words now? Because death is not the enemy. It's the mirror that reveals how you're living. And once you accept that this ride ends, you begin to ride it harder, bolder, more fully. This is not a rehearsal. This is it. So remember death. And live like you never forgot it again. Once you start living like every moment counts, you begin to see what truly matters. And you realize, peace isn't found out there. It's found inside. In the life of the mind. Very little is needed to make a happy life, it is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. Marcus Aurelius. Look around you, the world is loud. News headlines screaming. Ads chasing you across screens. Algorithms pushing outrage, envy, fear. Every second, something out there is demanding your attention. Your reaction, your soul. But here's what the Stoics knew. Peace is not found by fixing the world. Peace is found by fixing your focus. That's why the sixth Stoic principle is simple, but radical. Focus on your inner life, not external events. Because here's the truth no one wants to admit. You have almost no control over the world. You can't control what others think. You can't control the economy, the weather, the traffic, the timelines. You can't control whether someone likes you, forgives you, or shows up for you. But what you can control, is your inner response to it all. The Stoics believed your mind is your last line of freedom. It's the citadel. The inner fortress. And nothing, not war, not betrayal, not death, can take that from you. Unless you hand it over. Epictetus was born a slave. He had no wealth, no position, no freedom. But he wrote. You may fetter my leg, but not even Zeus himself can take away my will. That's not poetry. That's power. Because what truly makes a person free is not their circumstances. It's their state of mind. But in today's culture, we are trained to outsource our peace. We say, I'll be calm when things go my way. I'll be happy when I get that raise. I'll feel worthy when they like me. And so we become prisoners. To outcomes we don't control. To people we don't even know. To chaos that was never ours to manage. The Stoic way is different. It begins and ends within. If someone insults you, do you have to be offended? If a plan fails, do you have to see it as a failure? No. You choose your interpretation. You choose your meaning. You choose your response. That's inner freedom. That's emotional sovereignty. And it's not passive. It's active, daily mental training. So how do you start building this Stoic center within? Practice, perception reversal. When something difficult happens, pause and ask. What if this is happening for me, not to me? Guard your attention like sacred ground. What you consume becomes your mental weather. Curate your inputs. Choose inspiration over noise. Truth over trend. Stillness over scroll. Meditate on the stories you tell yourself. Are they empowering or enslaving? Your mind is the narrator, but you can rewrite the script. Journal your emotional reactions. Each trigger is a teacher. Each discomfort is a doorway. What's outside is the spark. What's inside is the fire. When you start building your inner world, you become untouchable, not because nothing touches you, but because you don't let it enter deeper than it should. Let them mock. Let them judge. Let the storm come. You remain steady, not because the world is perfect, but because your foundation no longer depends on it. That's the essence of Stoic strength. Not apathy, but mastery. Not disconnection, but disciplined connection. So here's your Stoic challenge today. At the end of this day, sit quietly. Ask yourself one question. What today made me feel disturbed, and why did I let it in? Write down your answer. And remember, next time, you don't have to. You don't have to react. You don't have to spiral. You don't have to become the chaos around you. Because everything you need to be peaceful, is already within you. It always has been. And the more you return to that center, the more unshakable you become. Once your inner world becomes your compass, the next evolution is to train how you use your emotions. Not to react blindly, but to respond wisely. If someone does wrong, it's because they think it right. Their mind is mistaken, not evil. Marcus Aurelius. Have you ever said something in anger and regretted it the moment it left your mouth? Or made a decision in fear that cost you more than the fear itself? We've all been there. Because we've all reacted, instead of responding. But the Stoics believe that between stimulus and response, there lies your freedom. Your true power is not in what happens, but in how you choose to meet it. And that's what the seventh Stoic principle is all about. Respond, don't react. In our modern world, reaction is everywhere. Someone offends you, cancel them. Something triggers you, shout louder. Your expectations aren't met, explode, withdraw, panic. We've mistaken speed for strength. Volume for truth. Emotion for action. But what if you could pause? What if you could reclaim the space between impulse and action? Because in that pause, that breath, that one sacred moment, you get to decide who you are. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and ask, have I also erred?" He doesn't say pretend nothing happened. He says own your role. Examine your response. Elevate your character. That's not weakness. That's moral courage. Here's the Stoic lens. You cannot control what others do. You can only control how you meet them, with fire or with firmness, with ego or with equanimity. So how do you practice this? Start with the breath. The breath is the gate between reaction and reason. When something stings, pause. Inhale clarity. Exhale reactivity. Reframe the insult. When someone disrespects you, ask, is this about me, or their pain? 99% of the time, it's not you, it's their storm, spilling over. Return to your standards. The Stoic doesn't act based on what others do, but based on who they have chosen to be. So if someone lies to you, you don't lie back. You hold the line. You respond with truth, not revenge. It's easy to react. Anyone can lash out. But response, deliberate, principled response, takes power. It takes patience. It takes practice. The Stoics trained for this like warriors. They rehearsed insults in advance. They meditated on worst-case scenarios, not to suffer, but to be prepared. They knew that in public life, in leadership, in love, reactivity is a liability. And it still is. When you're reactive, you're a puppet to the world. But when you respond, you lead it. So here's your Stoic challenge today. Think of one situation where you tend to react. Maybe with your partner, your coworkers, your inner critic. The next time it happens, pause for 3 seconds. That's it. 3 seconds. In those 3 seconds, ask, what would the wise version of me do here? Then do that. And if you fail, no shame. Reflect. Refocus. Return stronger. Because the goal isn't perfection, it's progress. From impulse, to insight. From chaos, to clarity. From reaction, to response. Every reaction surrendered is a step back into slavery. Every response reclaimed is a step deeper into freedom. The Stoics weren't cold. They were composed. They didn't suppress emotion, they transcended it. And so can you. Once you've mastered your responses, there's one more attachment you must break. The illusion that pleasure, fame, or wealth will complete you. It's time to confront the truth of indifference. To all things not in your control. Everything we love is on the verge of extinction. Marcus Aurelius. Let that line sit for a moment. Everything you desire, everything you cling to, everything you chase, is temporary. Fragile. Fading. And yet, we spend our lives running after it. Fame. Wealth. Pleasure. Status. Recognition. As if having more will finally make us feel enough. But the Stoics saw through the illusion. They understood that true freedom is not found in abundance, but in indifference. Indifference does not mean apathy. It doesn't mean you reject success, or live in misery. It means you are no longer owned by these things. No longer ruled by craving. No longer a prisoner of outcomes. The eighth Stoic principle is simple, but radical. Be indifferent to fame, wealth, and pleasure. Because the moment you need those things to feel worthy, you've given your power away. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, had more wealth and fame than anyone in his time. Yet he wrote, over and over again. Reputation is nothing. Pleasure is fleeting. And luxury is the enemy of virtue. He wasn't being dramatic. He was being honest. Because he had it all. And he still felt the weight of mortality, emptiness, and the call to something higher. Seneca, too, was one of the wealthiest men in Rome. Yet he practiced sleeping on the floor. Wearing rough clothes. Eating plain food. To remind himself. I can lose all of this, and I will still be me. Now, let's fast forward to us. We're taught to measure success by how many followers we have. How much money we make. How exotic our vacations look. How many people admire us. And so we chase shadows. We suffer over numbers. We burn out for applause. But here's what the Stoics teach. The applause ends. The money fades. The pleasure wears off. And what's left is you. Naked. Unfiltered. Still. So who are you without the titles? Without the likes? Without the praise? Who are you, when the spotlight turns off? That's the person Stoicism wants you to know. Because that's the real you. The one no one can take away. The one that doesn't need permission to be whole. So how do we practice this? Daily mental check-in. What are you clinging to that you don't actually need? Status? Approval? A luxury that's become your identity? Ask, if I lost this tomorrow, would I still be me? Practice voluntary simplicity. Spend one day a week without luxury. Eat simply. Dress simply. Speak less. Listen more. Let your soul breathe without performance. Detach from outcome addiction. Do the work, for the work. Not for the reward. Not for the likes. Not for the name. Because the Stoic knows. It's not about not wanting things. It's about not needing them to be complete. Fame is borrowed. Wealth is unstable. Pleasure is a flicker. But character is permanent. So here is your Stoic challenge. Take one thing this week, something you crave, and let it go on purpose. Skip it. Refuse it. Walk away from it. Then notice. Were you emptier? Or more free? Because sometimes, the most powerful act is not to reach, but to release. When you stop worshipping what you can lose, you become anchored in what you cannot. That's indifference. Not to life, but to illusion. And in that space, you rise. Calm. Untouchable. Alive. And once you're no longer chained by pleasure and pride, you'll discover something far more powerful. The quiet strength of simplicity, and the joy of daily gratitude. Look around. Everything you have was once something you only dreamed of. Anonymous. When was the last time you looked at your life? And whispered, this is enough. Not in resignation. Not in settling. But in genuine recognition. That what you already have, is more than what you once prayed for. Because here's the ninth Stoic principle. Cultivate gratitude and simplicity. Not as a reaction, but as a practice. A conscious choice to step back from the noise. And tune into what's essential. The Stoics knew that the root of most suffering is desire. Not desire itself, but desire without measure. Desire that constantly says, more. Better. Next. Seneca warned. We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality. And what fuels that imagination? Comparison. Consumerism. The illusion that what you have is never enough, because someone out there has more. But the Stoic path leads in the opposite direction. Not upward into excess, but inward into essence. Gratitude is not about ignoring what's wrong. It's about not ignoring what's right. It's not about pretending things are perfect. It's about seeing that some things already are. Simplicity, too, is not about owning nothing. It's about not being owned by anything. It's about freedom, the kind that comes when your joy doesn't depend on the price tag, the label, the algorithm, or the applause. So how do we begin this practice? Start with your morning. Before your feet touch the ground, name 3 things you're grateful for. Not big things. Simple things. Warm light. A working body. A second chance. End with your evening. Reflect, what moment today made me smile? What did I take for granted that someone else is praying for? Practice contentment in consumption. 1 meal. 1 space. 1 object. Ask, does this serve my soul, or just my ego? Declutter not just your closet, but your calendar, your thoughts, your goals. Remove what drains. Keep what matters. Let simplicity speak. The Stoics often practiced voluntary poverty. Not because they hated wealth, but because they wanted to know, if I lost it all, would I still be whole? And the answer, again and again, was, yes. Because their wealth wasn't in things. It was in perspective. Your life right now, yes, this one, is full of hidden treasure. A friend who still checks in. A roof that held up through the storm. A breath that fills your lungs, again and again, without you asking. That is abundance. You just have to see it. So here's your Stoic challenge this week. Spend 1 day living as simply as possible. Minimal food. Minimal digital. Minimal noise. Instead, write. Walk. Breathe. Talk slowly. Listen deeply. And at the end of that day, ask. Was I missing anything, or had I just forgotten how full life already is? The world says, chase. The Stoic says, pause. The world says, consume. The Stoic says, appreciate. Because the highest form of wealth is needing less and seeing more. And when gratitude becomes your lens, simplicity becomes your path, and freedom becomes your life. And when you've stripped away the noise, when you've learned to love what you already have, you're finally ready to live every single day as if it were your last. Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good. Marcus Aurelius. Let's stop pretending. You don't have forever. You don't have unlimited chances. You don't have someday. You have now. You have this breath. This morning. This hour. This decision. And that's why the final Stoic principle, the one that ties all the others together, is this. Live each day as if it were your last. Not out of fear. Not with panic. But with urgency. With clarity. With a sacred kind of presence. Marcus Aurelius wasn't romanticizing death. He was humanizing time. He knew that we live differently when we remember the clock is ticking. When we stop lying to ourselves that we'll always have next week. Next year, next time. Because the truth is, we don't. How many mornings have you rushed through? Mind elsewhere. Never realizing it might be the last time you'd see that exact light. Hear that exact voice. Be in that exact place. The Stoics asked. What would change if you lived today like it was your final chapter? Not to be dramatic. But to be honest. With yourself. With your time. With your values. Living as if today were your last doesn't mean you abandon responsibility. It means you embrace essentiality. It means you say what needs to be said. You stop waiting for perfect timing. You forgive faster, love deeper, risk wiser. You stop wasting your soul on things that don't matter. Because nothing clarifies like a deadline. And the ultimate deadline is the one we all share. So how do we live this way? Morning question. What would I do today if I knew I wouldn't get another? Let that guide your choices, not your fear. Evening reflection. If this were my last day, would I be proud of how I spent it? No shame. No guilt. Just awareness. Focus on legacy, not likes. Build what matters. Say what matters. Be who matters, not on screens, but in souls. Live your values, now, not later. Courage. Honesty. Creativity. Kindness. Don't write them down. Be them. In your words. In your work. In your walk. You could leave life right now. Yes. And yet, you're still here. So while you are, live on purpose. Not sleepwalking. Not surviving. But living, fully awake. Because maybe you don't need more time. Maybe you just need to stop wasting the time you already have. So here's your final Stoic challenge. For the next 7 days, live each one as if you don't get it back. Say the thing. Start the project. Apologize. Celebrate. Simplify. Delete the noise. Show up with soul. Because this day, this exact one, will never return. So don't spend it rehearsing for a future that may never come. Spend it embodying the life you were meant to live. And if you do that, not perfectly, but deliberately, then whether tomorrow comes or not, you'll know you lived well. These 10 Stoic principles aren't just ancient words. They are living tools. Practices to train your mind, shape your life, and free your soul. And now they are yours. So, which one will you live by today?